Good evening, all, and we're starting off with a public meeting tonight. This is a council meeting to host a public meeting on a matter requiring approval under the Planning Act. Call the meeting to order and advise that this public meeting is required under the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment for lands located on Block 10, Plan 11M-251 Wellington Street and Manor Road. The proposed amendment will permit 2 blocks with a maximum of 2-story townhouses with 4 dwelling units on each block and 2 blocks with a maximum of 3.5-story stacked townhouses with 8 units on each block for the total of 24 dwelling units. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to establish the site-specific standards for the development. Before we begin, members of the public are advised if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Further, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submission to the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Those wanting to be notified of this council's decision should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca and provide their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call customer service at 519-631-1680 extension 0 and provide that same information. Do any of the members of council have any disclosures of interest concerning any matters on this agenda? Seeing none, then I'll ask the clerk, what method of notice and when was this notice given to the public for this meeting?
Your worship, notice was provided in the St. Thomas Times Journal on Tuesday, September the 19th, 2023.
Great. Now I'll introduce the Manager of Planning Services, Jim McComb. Good to have you here tonight, Jim, who will provide the background information on the proposal and present the draft bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. On this first slide, we have a location plan showing the subject lands in the heavy solid line located at the southwest corner of Wellington Street and Manor Road. Next slide shows the location again of the subject lands on our aerial photography. Just to put this into some perspective, to the immediate west of the subject lands, there is a office building containing mainly medical type uses. To the north, there's a church, and it doesn't show up on our photography because of the age of the photography, but there is a recently built low-rise apartment there. Developing area to the east and some existing low-density residential to the south. Next slide is a copy of the site plan that was submitted with the application. What I'd like to say for council's benefit and the public that are listening, that in addition to the zoning amendment, this proposed development is subject to site plan control. Okay. And the way the buildings will be oriented on the site, the 2-story townhomes will be on the south side, so closest to the existing residential. The stacked townhomes, which are the taller buildings, will be located adjacent to Wellington Street and fronting onto Wellington Street. In between the 2 blocks of the stack, there is a common element outdoor amenity space, and the parking is centrally located on the site. We have drafted an amendment for the proposal. First part of the amendment states that zoning map 18 to the bylaw 50-88 as amended is further amended by showing the lands outlined in heavy solid lines on Schedule A as R549, and this schedule shall be added to and form part of the bylaw and be known as Special Zoning Map 18-47. Here's a copy of that Special Zoning Map part, noting the subject lands in the heavy solid line with the R549 designation being applied. Part 2 of the amendment introduces the new regulations. It'll be a new paragraph 7.5.117. The area affected is the R549 as was shown in the special zoning map part. The additional permitted uses is the stacked townhomes. These R5 zone already permits the townhouses. Additional permitted buildings or structures will be the buildings and structures for that part B, so the stacked townhome building and structure. Part D, the minimum lot area is 3,790 square meters, a minimum exterior side yard of 3.5 meters. That exterior side yard would be the yard closest to Wellington Road. The minimum rear yard of 5 meters, and that'll be closest to the existing office building. A height, and this is specific for the stacked towns, of 11 meters. We have a special clause for an entrance feature. The proponents wish to do like a gate, like a stone gate near the entrance. So it allows an entry feature with a height of no more than 2 meters, may be located in the required front yard, but no closer than 1 meter to a front lot line. We also have a provision for decks, and notwithstanding provision of section 4.2.2, an uncovered deck may project into a required interior side yard not more than 2.85 meters and should be no closer than 1 meter to a side lot line. We also have a provision for the daylight corner. Because there's a roundabout here, there's a daylight corner, and the covered porch on one of the stacked townhomes closest to the roundabout needs a special provision. So it states that a covered porch may be located 1.55 meters from a daylight corner. We have a definition for a stacked townhouse since the bylaw doesn't contain one. So we have a definition specific to this amendment, meaning a building designed to contain 3 or more dwelling units attached side by side, 2 units high, with each dwelling unit having a private entrance to grade level and a private open space area of any upper unit may utilize a portion of the roof of the lower unit. There are a few exceptions to the standard provisions of the R5 zone, as noted in subsection L. And then, as is our practice in part 3, it states that anticipation of the eventual consolidation of the bylaw and all amendments to such bylaw, including this amendment, Schedule B to the bylaw is hereby adopted, being zoning map 18, including all amendments made to date on that map part, including this amendment. So here is that consolidated with the subject lands shown at this location right here. And that is a draft amendment, Your Worship, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McComb. My notes say I'm to introduce Trevor Benjamins and Cyril Demeyer, who will make a presentation.
Sorry. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a brief presentation. My name is Trevor Benjamins. I'm a planner with CJDL Consulting Engineers out of Tillsonburg. I'm the author of the planning justification letter that was submitted with the applications. I'm speaking in support of the proposed development this evening. I also just want to take a moment to thank the manager of planning for giving a background of the requested amendments and the proposed development. So I think he kind of did a good job of the site location. I just want to flag to you on this first slide, the location of Rosethorn and Optimus Park on each corner of that figure on the screen. Next slide, please. So Plan 11M 251 was registered on November 3rd, 2021. That was part of a previous draft plan of subdivision, which included 9 semi-detached lots that had frontage onto Manor Road. That's kind of south of the property. It's 3,792 square meters, which is about 3.38 hectares in size. It's currently vacant land and it's designated as residential in the official plan. And as Jim mentioned, it's a split zoning R211 and R4-41. And the proximity, it's in proximity to a pharmacy and medical clinic that's west, low density, single and semi-detached south of the property. North is that 4-story apartment complex, which wasn't really visible on any of the aerial photos we presented. And east is the phase 2 development of the Manorwood subdivision. Next slide, please. As Jim mentioned, there'll be a total of 24 units on this block. There'll be an internal parking lot, which will have 31 parking spaces. That gives us a total of 1.29 parking spaces per unit. So there'll be 4 separate townhouse buildings. The northern buildings, as Jim mentioned, will be stacked townhomes, which if you're looking at this figure or this slide on the presentation, that's the stacked townhomes are the ones on the right. And the regular townhouses with on the south side of the block will be, those are the ones on the left. Access would be off of Manor Road, and an entrance sign is proposed, as Jim mentioned, is one of the amendments. It would be connected to full services and utilize on-site garbage collection. Next slide, please. Here's the site plan. I just want to note to you on the south side, the way that this lot is situated, the frontage is actually off Manor Road, so that the south 2 townhomes, those are technically the interior side yard, and the rear is technically the west side, which is abutting the medical center and pharmacy clinic. It's a little hard to make out here, but the red in the zoning table is the amendments that we are requesting. Next slide, please. I think Jim kind of went in detail of the requested amendments that we're asking for. We are requesting to rezone the entire block to an R5 zone, site specific, which is the 5th density zone in the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. Under the Planning Act, zoning bylaw amendments are required to be consistent with the provincial policy statement, and they must also conform to the legislation under each municipality. In this case, the City of St. Thomas official plan, and they must comply with the City of St. Thomas zoning bylaw. So I'm just going to go over a couple slides on how we plan to achieve this. Next slide, please. The proposed development would efficiently use land. Townhouses are generally more affordable than single detached and semi-detached homes that are readily available within the city. This would also complete this pattern of development within this area. As I mentioned, it's really a built up area around this location. It also is a cost-effective use of municipal services, as services are existing on Wellington Street. St. Thomas is a fully serviced settlement area, and provincial policy states that those areas are intended to focus on growth and development. It's really within walking distance to a variety of places, including a medical center, parks, those parks that I mentioned at the beginning, the Elgin Shopping Center, and it's within the built-up area of the city. This would also help the City of St. Thomas meet housing needs that their official plan requires. So next slide, please. The density of the proposed development is 63 units per hectare. That's with 0.38 hectare size block and 24 units proposed. The medium density policies under the official plan are between 25 and 75 units per hectare. So at 63, that would constitute medium density policies. Some of the criteria under those policies that be close to a park, which it is close to both Optimist and Rosethorn parks. It must have safe access, and access would be provided off Manor Road, and adequate parking spaces be provided. The next slide, we're going to look into the zoning bylaw a little more, and you'll see that the zoning bylaw requires a minimum 1.25 parking spaces per unit. 6.2 of the official plan refers to housing policies, and as I mentioned, this development will help assist the City of St. Thomas in meeting those standards. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, it's partially zoned. We're asking for a site-specific amendment to R5. The reason we chose R5 is it does permit a higher density than the R4, which is what partial of the site is currently zoned. Townhomes are permitted in the R5 zone. The zoning bylaw requires 1.25 parking spaces per unit. We're providing 31 parking spaces, so there will be adequate parking as per the zoning bylaw. The stacked townhomes that are abutting Wellington Street, we're requesting a 3.5 meter exterior side yard there. And the reason for that is because those southern townhomes that are abutting that low density residential, although that's technically an interior side yard, we wanted to provide more room, abutting those low density buildings. So that's why we're requesting the 3.5 meter exterior side yard. The rear yard, that relief that we're requesting is also abutting their parking lot of the medical clinic and the pharmacy. So it would have limited impact on neighbors and surrounding land uses as well. The bylaw requires a minimum lot area of 185 square meters per each unit. That doesn't really technically consider stacked townhomes based on the definition, which is why there were amendment for the minimum lot area. So those are just some of the why there it might appear to be a longer list of amendments, but some of them are technicalities. So next slide, please. So in summary and conclusion, we are consistent with the provincial policy statement and conform with the official plan and comply with the zoning bylaw. This is an opportunity to provide additional housing forms in both stacked and single and regular townhouses. It's an efficient use of space, and it's designed in a compact form with adequate parking. And as Jim mentioned, it's subject to site plan control, which will allow the city of St. Thomas to identify any needs such as buffering requirements or landscaping concerns. Thank you for hearing my presentation, and I'm available for any questions if you might have any. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. First, I'll go to Madam Clerk. Have you received any written submissions on the proposed changes?
Your worship, there were no written submissions.
Okay, I will then go to council and ask if they have any questions, and if so, please raise your hand. Councillor Baldwin Sands, then Councillor Wookie. Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It is very much appreciated. I also note on that diagram that it's access to good roads. So whether it be Wellington Street right out the front door where you can get 5 minutes to anywhere in St. Thomas. The east-west number 3 is just a little bit away. And the north-south connections with Burwell Road and Centennial Ave are great connectors as well. So it's a great spot for people to locate. So when I looked at stacked townhouses, one of the things that I did is visualized and went over to Southdale Road just east of Wonderland, where there are other stacked townhouses there on that site. And I think that that way that that's formatted is very, very similar to the diagrams that you have done. So it makes it very appealing in the streetscape. So I think that should be commended as well. And I would also like to say, I really look forward to see what the developer is going to do on the site because of what he has done across the street. Councillor Kohler and I went to across the street prior to anyone moving into that building, and what they're doing there in the attention that they were given to addressing some of the climate change issues like rainwater, collecting it for use in the gardens, charging station infrastructure that they were planning on putting in, great care for the interior fixtures, and the increased energy efficiency and the decrease of the carbon footprint. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to with the rest of this proposal and fully support it now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin Sands. Councillor Wookie.
Thanks, Your Worship. A question and then kind of a comment about drainage question. Given the parking lot to the west and the low density residential to the south, what's the drainage plan for this? Is it going to drain into the middle of the courtyard, or is it draining back and east, back and west? What's the drainage plan for this? If somebody could tell me that, thanks.
Through your worship, the drainage plan is the plan for stormwater management on this site is the south border and the west border kind of abutting the parking lot will have swales that will ultimately run to catch basins and then outlet to a storm drain. I'm not an engineer, but I hope that answers your question.
Just a follow up there, thanks. So the catch basins will, like the catch basin will run, like it'll be in the southwest corner of the development, that kind of thing. Like, I just want to make sure that I don't know which way it's graded on Hitch Crescent. I don't know whether they go uphill or downhill in the back in terms of, just want to make sure that we're not doing anything to impact the neighbors with drainage is my point. So.
Through your worship, yes, it will drain to the southwest corner at a catch basin. I believe that's correct.
Okay.
Mr. McComb, did you have a piece to add to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment. Yeah, as part of the application process for the zoning amendment, they did submit a functional servicing report, which briefly addresses the stormwater management issue. But the details on that will all be worked out at the site plan approval stage, where we ask for the detailed site grading plan and that sort of thing will come with the site plan package.
Okay, because there's for the size of the site, there's just not going to be a lot of grass. I'm not complaining, just not a lot of grass to absorb. So we're going to have a lot of runoff.
Yeah.
Okay, Thank you. Then I have another comment / question. I have to admit, I'm a little concerned about people turning left out of the parking lot when the roundabout is right there. So I'm just thinking, when I'm going around the roundabout, I'm looking to my left in terms of seeing what traffic's coming. And then how that driveway looks very close to where, like, it looks like in the diagram that you might actually have to cut down the curb on the divider there to turn left, or would there be no left turn coming out of there? So what do we think about that one? Thanks very much. That's it for me.
Mr. McCo?
Thank you, your worship, through you to Councillor Wookie. Yeah, what you see with the little hatched area on the drawing, that is a portion of the island that will be removed to facilitate left turn movement out of the parking lot.
Just to follow up, so where's the crosswalk there? The crosswalk is further to the north of that on that part of the divider, or there's a lot, I'm concerned there's a little bit going on there when people are hanging a right, that's all.
Yeah, I believe that crosswalk is a little further to the north of where
Okay.
this part of the island would be taken away.
Thank you very much. I just want to note that that's a concern of mine regarding the roundabout there. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Thanks, your worship. I just wanted to see page 3 and it's been up there the whole time, so thank you.
Okay. Councillor Peters?
Thanks, your worship. I just want to reiterate Councillor Wookie's concerns about the drainage. I heard that it's going to go to the southwest corner. And if you look at the topography of that land, the high point is flowing from the east to the west. So I too expressed some concern about ensuring that the neighbors' backyards on Hitch are not impacted. Another question, your worship, is regarding the stone gate. Can we have assurances that the stone gate will be the owner's responsibility in perpetuity so that we do not encounter other things like we're seeing around the city where gates are being constructed and then they start to fall apart and someone else other than the proponent who put them in has to fix it?
What did Tim say? Can you talk now?
Thank you, your worship, through you to Councillor Peters. This particular gate will be located wholly on this property. It'll be about a meter setback from the property line, so it'll be wholly contained on the property. It'll be the owner's responsibility to take care of it.
Further questions or comments from council? If we have no other from council, we'll open the meeting to questions from the public for those attending who've not already submitted their concerns or comments to the city. If you're listening on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, please click the raise hand icon. And if you've called into the meeting using a telephone, dial *9. The questions will be taken in that order and will be given, when given the opportunity to speak, please provide your name and address for the clerk's record. So do I have sure. Mr. De La Pelletier, Ethel, it's great to see you. I see your hand up. Let's see if we can unmute your microphone. It looks like it's unmuted. Go ahead and start if you can.
Thank you very much. The whole presentation was really interesting. Just to note that the building to the west.
We're trying to turn our sound on to be able to hear you, Ethel. So give us just a
Pardon?
second.
Yeah.
Keep trying
they
to
did it
talk.
The other
We'll
way
let you know if
around.
we hear you.
Normally they have this after the council meeting, but it's
I've
always
never heard
weird
Mr.
because
De La Pelletier be
if
this
it goes
quiet.
to 6
so.
o'clock, you
Yeah.
gotta go out of council and then come back in
Try
to
now, Ethel.
the meeting.
Somebody is talking.
So this
I
makes
can't-
sense in this
I can't
instance.
talk. Jeff Bray
Just
is
spoiled
talking.
starting.
We
at
have the
5.
best technical minds in the city working on this right now.
Okay. So what I'm suggesting is that there's like 8 or 10 feet of grass that the medical building puts on the grass to get rid of the snow. That's the portion that belongs to them. So if everything is draining this way, be prepared for the snow that they have to deal with. Can you still hear me?
Try now, Ethel.
What did you say to him?
Okay, Ethel disappeared. I'm going to ask anyone else to use their raised hand, and we'll get back to Ethel as soon as she's back there.
There. Do you hear me now?
So if there's anyone else wishing to communicate, use your raised hand icon or *9, and we'll take your call. We've got you, Ethel. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Well, okay, we see you.
My question is, the host has stopped your video.
I'm sure that fixed it.
Can you hear me now?
I sure can. Great to have you here tonight, Ethel.
Oh, I always love to be involved. I'm concerned after, we moved here in 1995 and had to wait a whole year in order to purchase our place because the special, zoning bylaw was made for the clinic. Now there is a property that we are doing now that has been a special zone for the last number of years. And it is, I'm wondering why all of a sudden, after the whole subdivision has been, it's not completed, but it has been worked on. And now we're looking at this vacant piece of land that we can put more buildings on. What my concern is that St. Thomas is not thinking about businesses. It's just as important as homes. And this section of St. Thomas now is pretty much 3-4 level apartment buildings.
Right.
I believe that this particular project could be across the street where the type of homes are already there. But I'm really concerned on why we had to wait over a year before this piece of land had to be changed from this special zoning bylaw just to build homes. I know we need homes, but we're not looking at what insurance and all of the other amenities that this neighborhood needs. We still should have land for those things to be built. That is my question to where are we going to get these other buildings that are on these special lands, because we've made that special piece of property and we hadn't used it and hadn't used it and hadn't used it. And I think it's going to be very crazy to have two separate entities in those two lots. I think it's going to be a problem, but that's my question, why we had to change it and why we're not looking at other businesses.
Yeah, 5th floor, 510.
That's my question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McComb, do you want to handle that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Difficult to answer the question about why it took so long, other than, these lands have only recently, the block has been there for a while, but the developer has been, or is developing this block in addition to the development of the subdivision that was the semi-detached lots to the south along Manor Road. And so I think part of this is simply the developer coming to ascertain exactly how they wanted to develop this block. The zoning is being put in place, as we heard from Mr. Benjamin's presentation. The current zoning, there's 2 different zones that are on here that wouldn't support this particular proposal. From staff's perspective, we look at this as appropriate development of this block. It is designated and has been designated for residential use for some time. And the built form being towns and stacked towns does act as a bit of a appropriate transition between the commercial uses that are nearby and the higher density uses to the north. We think it is a good fit, and I think the zoning amendment itself is apt to the proposed use.
Great. Further questions from council or from any of our members on the attendee list? Do I have any other hands up on the list? Again, use your raise hand icon or *9 if you're on a phone. And we'll take your questions. Council? I'll give it one last try. If you'd like to add your comments to tonight's public meeting, you can use your raised hand icon or *9 if you're on a phone. Or if you're in council, simply raise your hand and we'll take your thoughts. Well, in the opinion of the mayor, the public has been given fair opportunity to express their views regarding this proposal. And it should be stated that everyone's been given a fair opportunity to express their views. If there are any further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw for the proposed amendment should email customer service at customerservice@stthomas.ca and provide their name and address. Those who do not have access to a computer and wish to be notified should call customer service at 519-631-1680, extension 0, and provide your name and which public meeting you're asking questions about. And I declare this public meeting now concluded.